Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. We still have some action in the tropics to talk about this morning, and one, maybe even two systems that we really need to monitor closely here in the northeastern Caribbean. In addition, some action for Florida and for the Western Caribbean that we're keeping an eye on, and what could be a pretty active pattern in the next couple of weeks for the East Coast, even here. And a pretty nasty storm heading towards the British Isles and Ireland here over the next 24 hours. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the threat for some severe weather across parts of the Ohio Valley, Kentuckiana as well. So thank you for joining me. I'm a meteorologist in the Raleigh area. I've been on YouTube since the end of last year, and I appreciate your time today. I'll try to get through this pretty quickly for you guys, but we do have one storm that's named, that is Philippe. Another one behind it that will likely get a name, that would be Rina. And Rina, the stronger of the two by the time we head towards the weekend. But both of these systems continue trending more to the south and west with time, indicating that high pressure to the north is going to build in and send them on more of a westerly track, at least for the next few days. And if you are in the northeastern Caribbean, you definitely need to keep an eye on these. Um, at this point, I'm not expecting something powerful to hit the Caribbean, but nonetheless, it's going to be more action than we've seen so far this year in the tropics, but something we need to watch. And then even getting closer towards the Bahamas and the East Coast next week, we definitely have some activity to keep an eye on. The National Hurricane Center forecast shows Tropical Storm Philippe, which is continuing on a west-northwesterly path, likely to turn back towards the west. And this forecast has shifted some. Originally, this looked like it was not going to be a threat to any land. That is now changing due to the changing landscape of the upper level pattern. Behind it, we've got a storm that will likely become our next depression or tropical storm by the time we get to this time tomorrow. And the next name on the list would be Rina. Let's take a look at the wide view from tropicaltidbits.com of the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see several features on the map. I'm going to get out my pen and kind of annotate for you guys here so you can see what's going on. But this is Tropical Storm Philippe right now, a very highly sheared system that still is fighting for its life, but doing pretty well, all things considered, and it still has a chance that maybe it could survive by the time it gets here this weekend. Behind it, this is Invest AL91, which will likely be a depression here in the next 24 hours, and probably Tropical Storm Rina. And that system is likely to take more of a turn in this direction, but not necessarily escaping this way. There is at least somewhat of a shift more in this direction. So we have to keep an eye on things in the Eastern Caribbean for the time being until we know for certain. We do have a pretty big trough of low pressure here moving through the Great Lakes. That is going to spin up more storms this afternoon and especially tonight over the Ohio River Valley as that shifts eastward. And we've got a pretty strong trough digging down into the eastern Gulf, bringing moisture up into the Florida Peninsula and even the Panhandle again today. It's been a wet week so far in Florida. We do need some rainfall, certainly, but it could be a little bit too much too soon. And that moisture continues to feed up from the Western Caribbean into the southeast. So kind of a wet week expected here. Not seeing any kind of circulation forming, so that's good news, but certainly a lot of rain coming for the Caymans, Western Cuba, Florida Keys, and for much of the Florida Peninsula here in the next couple of days. Behind systems 1 and 2, we're pretty quiet here. We've got a trough here kicking dry air down into the eastern Atlantic. That's going to keep anything else from forming over the main development region. And things are pretty quiet across the Gulf and over the eastern Pacific Ocean. So we like that, certainly. Here's a look at what's called the wind shear map. And the areas of red indicate very unfavorable wind shear, stronger wind shear out of the west. You can see that wind shear is very strong across the southeast, across Florida and Cuba. And so we're not expecting anything tropical to be able to organize due to the face of this wind shear out of the southwest. We do have lower wind shear in the southwest Caribbean, but we don't have thunderstorms down there. So we need both to occur to really see tropical development. That's not going to be the case in this area. Back in the central Atlantic, there is a higher amount of wind shear over Philippe. That is bringing thunderstorms east from the center of the storm and keeping it from strengthening and actually causing some gradual weakening. But as Philippe heads westward here, and let me circle that for you guys to see, you can see that the center is right here. It's in this area of red where there's a lot of wind shear, but as the storm heads this way, it's going to head into an area of more favorable lower wind shear. So it may weaken some, but it may hold together just strong enough to perhaps impact this area of the Caribbean here by the weekend. Behind it, we've got what will be Rina, and that is in an area of lower wind shear, so it's got a better chance of becoming a hurricane as it heads in this general direction. So Kind of some challenging forecasts to come here in the next couple of days. I'll be honest with you guys, things will certainly change some more, but we definitely don't want to let our guard down just yet until we know for certain. And here's a look at the Western Atlantic just to show you guys, yes, there's a lot of wind shear across this area, and that is keeping thunderstorms from forming in an area where the water is still very warm. Everything is in a highly sheared area here in the Western Caribbean and Southeastern Gulf. And then we've got Philippe down here on the map. And you can see here, yes, a lot of rain, a lot of thunderstorms, lightning across Grand Cayman, across the Isle of Youth, and across the western tip of Cuba. And these storms are going to head into Southwest Florida, where that rain is very much needed. I think I was seeing from Matt DeWitt over in Southwest Florida that parts of Naples were almost 2 feet of rain in the deficit here this year, which is pretty crazy. But I don't think we're going to get 2 feet, but we certainly could see a foot of rain in the next week here in Southwest Florida. So that rain is very much going to be welcome, although it's not going to lead to a great week if you are heading to the beaches here. But nothing of actual concern as far as tropical development. Now, Philippe and future Rina here are very close to each other, and that's why we're not seeing any quick development. We actually have an upper level trough here in the Northeast Caribbean providing that wind shear, but Philippe still looks healthy enough to maybe maintain its own here over the next few days. So that's what I'll be watching for you guys here. In the Eastern Atlantic, we're in great shape here. We've got this trough that's going to continue to kill off any development, sinking air over Western Africa. So we're not expecting any additional development in the next couple of weeks. Now, taking a look here at the ensembles, you see our two systems on the map. What's changed is that these systems are trending a little bit weaker and a little farther south and west, which is not to be unexpected. When you've got a strong high here, stronger storms will go poleward, and weaker storms will go more to the south following the trade winds that carry across the southern and main development regions of the Atlantic. Now you see several more ensembles are going into the Northeast Caribbean. They don't have a strong system, but they do have a system nonetheless. And then Rina, we've got several more ensembles that are trending more south and west, getting closer to those Leeward Islands here. This time frame is actually going to be Sunday night, so we'll have one system maybe over Puerto Rico. The next one may be bearing down on the Leeward Islands here by next Monday and Tuesday. It may not actually hit the islands, but it may come close enough to cause at least a scare before we see a turn to the right. So Rina, we have kind of a split. We have a weaker system approaching the islands or a stronger system making a curve into the central Atlantic. And so far, every model that's shown things turning to the right and strengthening has ended up not being correct this week. Just too much wind shear. And so I don't think these solutions are going to pan out the way that the European ensembles are showing. And in addition, we could see low pressure forming somewhere here towards next weekend off the southeast coast, but that remains to be seen at this point. Here is a look at our global ensemble control from the European. And you can see two systems here, one which is very weak. That's what's left of Philippe moving towards the islands this weekend. The next one, Rina, has a chance at strengthening over the central Atlantic. And then the East Coast is in pretty good shape for the time being. But as we head later into next week, we do see lowering pressures off the southeast coast. So keep an eye here on potential development, maybe not tropical, but certainly something that could come through the Bahamas and affect the southeast coast here next weekend. This is Rina, and Philippe is gone at this point. By the time we get towards the 7th and 8th, the European says it's going to recurve but become a strong storm here over the central Atlantic, heading northward, maybe getting close to the Avalon Peninsula, excuse me, of Newfoundland here by the time we get towards the 12th and 13th of October. I'm getting over something, so if I don't sound great, that's why, but I feel much better. So thank you all for your thoughts and prayers, those of you that have been chiming in about that. Here's a look at the operational European, and you can see the leading storm Philippe is weakening. I'm going to show you in a minute. Not every model shows that though. Here's Rina, not quite strengthening quickly enough yet until Philippe gets out of the way and until this non-tropical low gets out of the way here early next week. We will see some strengthening, and you can see here the remains of Philippe try to hold together late next week and take aim here at the Carolinas by next weekend. So we could have another wet weekend coming up. Not this weekend, but the first weekend of October across the southeastern United States. One thing I will point out is that no model shows anything developing in the Western Caribbean or the Southeast Gulf. It's unsettled, but nothing of organization at this point. Here's a look at the GFS. This is the latest run coming in. You can see it is still holding on to Philippe. It's a weaker system, but it is turning southwest right into the Leeward Islands, right into Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis Islands here by the time we get to Sunday morning. Behind it, though, we see Rina beginning to strengthen. If I back this up one model run, since we're jumping the gun on this run of the GFS, you can see there's still low pressure here over Puerto Rico and over the Eastern Dominican Republic Monday night into Tuesday. But our storm of real focus at this point is staying east of the islands. That would be Rina. And while it's getting a little bit closer, it looks like it is going to try to turn away and strengthen. We're banking on this storm strengthening for it to turn away from the Caribbean. There is a chance the wind shear remains higher, and we've seen this happen a few times. We saw it with Lee, where the wind shear was just stronger than what the models showed. If that's the case, there is an escape route here for Rina to head back towards the west and affect the islands later next week. So keep an eye on that. It's not the likeliest scenario, but it's one that I am guarding against at this point. The Canadian model shows here is Philippe, and that is weakening as it moves towards the islands. But look, it's actually trying to hold back together, according to the Canadian, and this is Monday morning. And it shows a tropical storm making landfall very close to Anguilla here by early Monday morning, late Sunday night. It actually does not develop Rina. In fact, it makes Philippe the stronger storm. I don't know if that's happening or not, but let's just say the models still struggle with this wind shear and with the upper level pattern. And just because the official forecast says Philippe is going to become a remnant low and Rina is going to strengthen does not mean that's exactly what's going to happen. Very well, Philippe could hold together and become the stronger of the two. Rina may not develop due to wind shear from Philippe. So either way, I don't think we're going to see anything hitting the southeast coast unless Philippe tries to hold together and gets over towards the Bahamas later next week. Then we have to watch it. Oh, by the way, the Canadian does have some low pressure finally getting going here in the Western Caribbean late next week. We'll keep an eye on that. It's a less likely scenario, but it's one we have to watch. And there's lower pressures off the East Coast. So a lot can still happen over the next week and a half. And I don't know the answers just yet. I'm just monitoring for you guys. Philippe, you can see, has a great area of thunderstorms, but it's well to the east of the actual storm center, which is down in here. So it remains very sheared at this point. And the National Hurricane Center says it becomes a remnant low before it gets to the Virgin Islands here Sunday. I don't know if that's absolutely going to be the case yet. I would not be shocked if this system were able to fend off the wind shear. It stays kind of a lower end tropical storm, and then when it gets into this area, maybe it's a tropical storm. So if you're in the Virgin Islands, the Northern Leeward Islands, and Puerto Rico, do not give up on this storm just yet. Just because the Hurricane Center says it's going to be a remnant low does not necessarily mean it will be at this point. There's still a lot of uncertainty. If you take a look at tropical models, overall, they continue to track more towards the west and even west-southwest. So you do need to keep an eye on that. The GFS model says it is likely going to be at least getting close to the Virgin Islands, if not going into Puerto Rico and the Mona Passage by next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And the ensemble trend continues to be more to the south and west as wind shear continues to hold up. But it's still kind of up in the air at this point. A lot of models do show this weakening to depression strength or lower by the weekend. Several others show it may try to get a second wind here by the time it gets to Sunday and Monday. We may even have a hurricane by the time we get to Monday and Tuesday. The HAFS tropical model does indicate that. It's a very sheared system. Winds are about 50 to 60 miles per hour today. Everything's on the east side, and it weakens some until we get to about Friday night and Saturday. Then we see a resurgence here of tropical storm, if not close to hurricane strength. This is a look at Sunday around lunchtime in the northern leewards and southern Virgin Islands. You can see wind gusts may get over 50 miles per hour in Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, and Anguilla here. So if this model is right, I'm not saying it will be, but if it's right, I would not be shocked if we had a tropical storm watch issued here Friday night, Saturday morning, and maybe even a tropical storm warning by Sunday in these islands. So keep an eye on things. Again, this is one tropical model, but it is holding things together. It fends off the shear with Philippe. It says we could have stronger tropical storm conditions, especially here over St. Kitts and Nevis. This is a 65. I know it's hard to read, but I can see it here. So that is definitely a stronger wind gust that we need to keep an eye on. Now, the next system, yeah, it's got a 90% chance of developing. You can see there's a good little spin going, but it still lacks the organization of a tropical depression. Models show that, generally speaking, it will try to bend back to the west and follow Philippe to a certain point, and then try to turn back to the right, narrowly escaping the islands. However, there are ensemble members that are still to the west of this curve and show something coming into the Leeward Islands. The time frame's probably next Thursday or next Wednesday night. So we may have two systems in this general vicinity next week to keep an eye on. But still way too much spread. We have several ensembles that have this being a strong hurricane in this area. Some show it a weaker hurricane or tropical storm in this area, and even one that shows a hurricane coming through the northern Leeward Islands. A lot to be determined until the system forms, and honestly, until Philippe gets out of the way, because until that happens, Rina's probably going to struggle to develop. Models show it's developing into a tropical storm very quickly, but I'm not so certain that's going to be the case just yet. All right. Furthermore, we do have Storm Agnes, which I don't know why that name is being used because it was a bad hurricane across the eastern United States in 1972, major flooding in Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic. But apparently Europe doesn't seem to care about that. They're going to name this tropical storm or non-tropical storm Agnes. Winds are actually up to about 90 miles per hour. It's going to be plowing very quickly here into Ireland. And you can see a very well-defined bomb cyclone here, pressure dropping quickly from where it was yesterday, getting ready to hit the southwestern coast of Ireland this afternoon local time. You can see from pivotalweather.com, pressures down into the 960s. They will rise back to the 970s and into the 980s. But this is going to lash the southern-facing coast with wind gusts over 50 to 60 knots, which is about 100 to 110 kilometers per hour. You can see that on the European here. We're going to start getting lashed this afternoon in southern Ireland. Wind gusts up to 110 kilometers per hour, even on the southeast coast. Wales will see 80 to 90 kilometer per hour gusts. Southwest England will see those high gusts. And then the system will eventually weaken as it lifts through. But it's going to batter these islands here as we get through the day today. Back to the states here, we do have a slight risk for severe weather across Kentuckiana, basically central Kentucky, southern Indiana, southeast Illinois. I think the main threat for severe weather will hold off until this evening and maybe even later this evening, but there is a 2% chance for tornadoes here, a 5% chance for severe hail and wind across this area, bounding the Ohio River, getting maybe even into middle Tennessee overnight tonight. The reason why we've got this digging upper level low cutting down through Illinois here this morning. We've got one piece of energy that swings through northern Kentucky and then a second piece of energy that comes through later in the evening. This is about 10 o'clock tonight central and then overnight. And this second wave is the one to watch for potential severe weather. Looking at the HRRR model on pivotalweather.com, you can see there'll be a batch of showers and storms this morning, generally staying below severe limits, but things will become more unstable later in the afternoon, and additional storms are expected as this next piece of energy moves through later this evening. You can see there'll be some cells that could be locally strong to severe here across the bluegrass area of Kentucky, and then more storms dropping down from Indiana and Illinois across the Ohio River overnight. So a small chance we could see a tornado or two in here anywhere across this zone. But honestly, if you're in Kentucky or Southwest Ohio, Southern Indiana, you need to be on the lookout for things after bed tonight. So this could be an overnight situation here where we may have a watch in place. Things will weaken by the time they hit Tennessee early tomorrow morning, 7 or 8 in the morning, and then we'll have leftover showers and storms through the afternoon hours behind this main piece of energy. So that's what I'm focusing on. The other area to watch is Florida, where we're going to have more showers and storms battering the southwest coast this morning, then moving inland into the peninsula this afternoon. Very heavy rain expected here on the east coast through the afternoon, evening hours. Additional storms moving in overnight into the Keys and then southwest Florida. And then overnight into Miami, we could have some flash flooding across Miami-Dade, across Monroe, even across southern parts of Broward County during the overnight hours here between 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning. So a good time to be on the lookout for potential flash flooding. There'll be a lot of lightning with these storms, a lot of moisture feeding in from the tropics, and then wash, rinse, and repeat tomorrow. We're going to see more storms developing over the peninsula tomorrow afternoon and evening, and maybe more nocturnal storms in southwest Florida here tomorrow night. Rain totals over the next 48 hours going to be pretty juicy here, up to 4 inches in Miami. Homestead could see 8 to even a foot. 12 inches of rain here across central and southern Miami-Dade into Key Largo. Significant rain according to the HRRR model. This is just one run of the model, but lots of the peninsula could pick up between 1 to 3 inches, some areas locally 6 inches or more. You guys know how it is in South Florida. One storm can move and sit very slowly over the same area and dump a foot of rain. We saw that happen earlier here in the springtime. That certainly looks like it's a possibility in Monroe and Miami-Dade counties here in the next 48 hours. Please be safe in South Florida, and please be safe here in the Ohio and Tennessee valleys overnight tonight. I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel or you've visited a couple times, I would urge you to subscribe. I'm going to do my best to provide low hype and high value forecasts to you all. And as always, I give all the glory to God who has given me the strength to do this every day. I can't do it without him. I know we go on through life every day and we face challenges, and it's very easy to just sit there and wish these challenges away, but we can't. We've got to have God on our side to do that, in my opinion, as a Christian person. So I did want to just read my favorite verse to you all real quick. If you're still watching, Romans 8:28, King James Version. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. This is my calling. Being a meteorologist is a gift God has given me, but it's my calling to share this word with you all because it's a wonderful piece of holy word coming from God, from Paul to the Romans church, and knowing that all things work together for those that are actually believers. If you're not a believer, then this does not apply to you, and I'm not judging you. This is the word that's been handed down. This is not my word. But I very much subscribe to this because there was a very long time in my life where I felt that I had no purpose in life. I was just going to kind of work and work and work and eventually one day die, and that was it. But thank the Lord, the window opened for me to at least understand that there was a higher purpose for me and a higher calling for me, and that I could accept God. I could be given his grace through Jesus Christ and salvation through him, and that things are going to start working together, and that I'm going to be blessed more and more. And more importantly, not only am I going to be blessed, I can bless people like you. So I just wanted to share that wonderful word with you. I hope it encourages you today. I would love to pray for you or over you. And if you could pray for me too, that'd be great. I hope you all have a great day. We'll chat again tomorrow morning. Have a blessed day. See you then.